Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming?
From the roar of the crowd to the roar of the engines, this is Pit Pass.
Pit Pass is brought to you by Aaron's of State College on the Benner Pike, by W.R. Hickey Beer Distributor, celebrating 80 years, and by Pocono Raceway, the Tricky Triangle. Here are your hosts, Ron Fox and Jan Miller.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Pit Pass here on WHVL.
As you saw at the beginning of our show, that was Jan singing the national anthem at Motordrome Speedway on Friday, and I have to say, a great job, and the fans really liked it.
Well, thank you. I was honored to do it, and I can't think of a better song for a soloist to sing than the national anthem. Now, as Ron was saying, we were at Motordrome on Friday for the Napa Piney 6, which was in honor of legendary promoter Piney Lasky.
Now, we will have highlights of that 100-lap late model race coming up here in a moment, but here is what else is coming up on this week's show. We go to Lincoln Speedway, where on Saturday night, the 410 Sprinters competed for $5,000 to win. It was an evening which honored a fallen firefighter and a legendary sprint car driver. Jan has a story of some top drivers pulling double duty at Mahoning Valley Speedway. Asphalt or dirt, sprints, modifieds, or late models, we will take a look at some special upcoming events for this week. For the past few seasons, Motordrome Speedway promoter Stan Lasky has held a race in honor of his father, Piney Lasky, who is best known for owning and promoting Jennerstown Speedway.
Yes, and my goodness, there was a huge crowd there, and they were all excited. It was great to be there. Now let's take a look at some highlights from the late model 100-lap event.
Teammates Bobby Henry in the number 11 and the 95 of Gary Wiltrout started on the front row for the event. As they go through turns 1 and 2, it looks like Wiltrout has the advantage, but Henry starts to close the gap down the backstretch. The 83 of Matt Sever rides in third, followed by Mark Catone in the 31. However, the first caution comes out with only one lap completed as the 14 of Adam Kostelnik and Scott Baker come to a stop on the track. Henry would lead the next couple of laps after the restart before Wiltrout works to his inside to take over the top spot. Sever and Henry raced door to door before the 83 was able to move into the runner-up position on lap 10. Glenn Galt Jr., who set fast time in qualifying yet started in the 8th position, took 4th away from Catone on lap 16. Following him up through the field was the white number 16 of Colt James, who won this event in 2010. Up front, Sever slowly closed on Wiltrout as Galt and James continued to march towards the lead duo. Here, the Orange Blossom Special works the inside of Henry for the 3rd position. Eventually, the speedy pair would shuffle Henry back to 5th place. The defending winner of this race, Steve Black in the red number 1, also had one of the stronger cars in the 22-car field. On lap 20, he takes a position away from the black 75 of Barry Audi. Ahead of them, 96 Mark Poole rides the bumper of Nathan Russell in the 15 machine. During a caution period on lap 31, Henry went pit side and would later retire from the event. On lap 35, Galt would take the 2nd spot away from Sever, and as he had done since the early stages of the race, James followed in his tire tracks. Coming into this event, Wiltrout led all drivers with 4 wins on the season and was atop the point standings. Yet he was not able to keep Galt and James in his rearview mirror as he relinquished the lead on lap 41. A caution at the halfway point bunched the field. One lap after the restart, Poole and Sever made contact in turn 4. Sever comes out ahead of the 96. Then, in the middle of 1 and 2, there's more contact which sends the 83 spinning to bring out yet another yellow flag. After the restart, James initially lost some ground to Galt and even had to retake 2nd from Black. But after following Galt for most of the race up to that point, Colt James took the lead. Black, Wiltrout, and Audi made up the rest of the top 5. During the last quarter of the race, James seemed to be loose on the exit of turn 4, yet was able to extend his lead over Gault over the course of the remaining laps. And Colt James, who hails from the state of Texas but lives in North Carolina, picks up his second win in the Piney Lasky Memorial.
Well, Colt, congratulations on being the first repeat winner of the Piney Lasky Memorial.
I appreciate it. It means a lot to me just to do it twice. You know, the first time was hard enough, but to, you know, put my name in the record books as the first guy to do it twice, and hopefully this isn't the last. You know, I'd like to be 3, 4, 5 times. You know, but just had an awesome car tonight, and it was it was almost as good as the one we had here 2 or 3 years ago, but just a little bit off. Seemed like we needed about 10 laps to get going, but Glenn could hang with me really hard the first couple, but once we got a long run, we were pretty good.
Now, at the beginning of the race, you and Gault seemed to be picking up spots by running on the outer groove where nobody else seemed to be.
Yeah, I was just, I wasn't really concentrated on passing him yet. I just wanted to really follow him, and you know, just wherever he went, I was going, and just I was, you know, really trying to just run about 80 to 90% of what the car was capable of, just to try and save as much as I could for 30 or 40 to go. But they're actually in 3 and 4 it wasn't as much, but in 1 and 2 there seemed to be quite a bit of grip in the second lane.
Now, later on in the race, you seemed to be a little bit loose on the 4th turn, but yet you continued to gain.
Yeah, it was just Glenn was just, you know, pushing me, you know, step my game up, and you know, I was trying to get it, you know, come off as straight as I could, but there was a couple times, you know, where just got into it too quick and busted the rear end loose, but it wasn't too bad, but it's hard to, this track's so bumpy, it's really hard to come off just as straight as possible.
Now, you keep coming to Pennsylvania winning and taking back large amounts of money to North Carolina.
It's always nice whenever you can take home the winner's check. You know, we all do this as a hobby, so anytime you can, you know, take home the bigger check, it certainly helps out. Nobody's making money here, but it'll help out towards the next race.
It looked like you had a rather small crew, so this is quite an accomplishment then.
Oh yeah, just everywhere we go, it's usually just me and my dad and my wife, and occasionally a buddy or two. But we travel as light as possible. We have about an 8-hour drive. We drove up late last night, and as soon as we get out of here, we'll be driving home, and probably be pulling in the house about 8 or 9 in the morning, and just in time to see my young son. He couldn't make it, and I wish he could have. You know, it seems I have not yet won a race when he's at the racetrack, but it seems like every time he stays home, I win. But I want that victory lane picture with him really bad.
I'm sure it will happen.
I hope so. I hope so before he gets too big and he's trying to kick me out of the driver's seat.
Well, thank you, and congratulations again.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So Colt James picks up his second Piney Lasky Memorial win. He was followed across the line by Glenn Gault Jr., Gary Wiltrout, Steve Black, and Mark Catone.
Well, Glenn Gault Jr. and Colt James were certainly the class of the field.
Yeah.
They stole the show. I heard, though, previously the fans weren't so keen on Colt James.
Well, I've been to all but one of the Piney Memorials, missing last year's, unfortunately. But I remember when Colt first showed up, and after a couple of on-track incidences, didn't make many fans. But he came back the next year, blew away the field, and made a lot more friends.
Well, they seem to love him this year, and I certainly hope one of these times his son is present when he wins.
Yeah. Well, we will go back to Motordrome Speedway for more highlights later in the show. But coming up next is some Saturday night action from Lincoln Speedway. The 410s compete with $5,000 on the line. Pit Pass returns right after this.
It's the honk heard round the world. Goose Island Beer has migrated to W.R. Hickey Beer Distributor. That's right. The signature Chicago craft brews of Goose Island Beer are flying onto the shelves of W.R. Hickey. Best sellers like Goose Island's 312 Urban Wheat Ale, Honkers Ale, India Pale Ale, Nut Brown Ale, and seasonal favorites are available right now at W.R. Hickey. As always, have one of our beer runners bring your favorite Goose Island beer right to your car. Goose Island IPA, gold medal winner at the Great American Beer Festival.